Well, welcome to Carving a New Path. This podcast is filled with stories and tools and resources to help you pause and reflect on the life you're living and who you want to become. Most of us were raised in a society that encourages productivity and do. And then a life circumstance comes along, like a job layoff or an illness or the birth or death of a loved one, or something like what we're all experiencing now, and it disrupts your daily routine. It gives you a chance to pause and reflect on your life, a chance to practice going inward. Well, the show today is called Venus Retrograde, and my guest is Elizabeth St. Germain. And Liz is the founder of Living in Love, and she has a Facebook group for women living in love and the Living in Love Connection. And those links are in the comment section. So check it out by clicking there and going to see what she's up to. Well, and in this episode, we're going to talk about astrology and specifically Venus retrograde. So welcome, Liz.
Thank you, Andrea. Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I know that a few weeks ago we did a show, and today we're going to really turn in and focus on astrology, specifically Venus retrograde. So I was just going to start off with a simple definition that I found on a site called Cafe Astrology. Like, what is astrology? Okay, so astrology can be used as a powerful and fun tool for understanding ourselves, others, and the world around us. We use many different tools or languages to define and understand our world. Astrologers believe that the positions of the sun, moon, and planets at the time of a person's birth have a direct influence on that person's character. And many astrologers also believe that we have free will, that this is something that astrology can show you something about your destiny, but you have free will. All right. So how about for you, Liz? What other words would you add to that?
Yeah, I love that. When we think of astrology, astrology is a cosmic clock.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows us where we are in relationship to the universe we live in. And when we come in from spirit and we take our first breath and we embody this physical form, we literally breathe in all of the energies that are in the sky in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes our sacred geometry.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes the mandala of who we are. So it is who we are, these energies, and they're just energies. We give meaning to the energy, but they are energies that function through us and have qualities and have expressions, and they have conversations with each other, and they create harmonics within us. And if we can attune and harmonize and bring our consciousness to those energies, we can truly co-create with our soul.
Well, I love that. And I'm going to just jump in and share one personal thing, because we talked about just, how has astrology impacted us or affected us. And the first time I had an astrology reading was with Lucky Sweeney, like 30 years ago. And it was a natal chart. So that, for anyone who doesn't know, that's the way the skies looked the day, the moment you were born. And sun, moon, 12 houses. And she started to define, and she didn't know me very well at that point. She started to go through all the houses, and I was going, how does she know this about me?
Yeah.
The things she was describing, I felt in my heart. And then she told me something that has been an understanding and a tool I have used for 30 years. And that is, she said that one of the ways that I know who I am and that I have a connection to who I am is by being around other people. And she said, but it doesn't mean you have to go to a party or you have to go to some social event. She said, just sitting in the corner of the coffee shop, you're going to receive energy from people around you, and that will help you with your writing. And, you know, and if you're feeling kind of depressed or low, she said, just go out to the grocery store and just walk up and down the aisles. Just being in that environment will help you. And it changed my life. Like that simple thing that she saw in my chart, that really is how I function and what I need. So how about you? What were some of your
Yeah, I love that.
of an astrology reading when you?
I love that. Yeah. And as I'm thinking about your chart, I'm kind of going, oh, I think I know where that is. I know what energy that is.
Right. And I have no idea. She may have said to me, this square, this conjunction, this whatever relation to these two planets. But
yeah, totally. So one of the things for me is that's been so valuable in my own journey of understanding my astrology is understanding my moon and my lunar nature, because the moon represents our subconscious. And it was so validating, because I've always been this person that I'm like an introvert extrovert. You know, like I'm an extrovert around people I know.
Yes.
But I've always needed this time to retreat. And I didn't really understand why, because there was also the impulse in me to want to be with people and want to do things. But then I really needed to pull in and recharge my battery. And I could see at different times in my life where I'd be going like the Energizer Bunny. And then I would like kind of burn out because I wasn't honoring that inner knowing that I really need to retreat. And when I began understanding the nature of my moon and the nature of my energy, my mandala, that I have a lot of Scorpio energy. So we're in the full moon, Scorpio full moon. And I have a lot of Plutonian energy, which is why I have an affinity for these types of teachings, the occult, right? Which is really, the occult just means what's hidden, what we haven't yet synthesized in our consciousness yet, that we're synthesizing what's hidden, and it's coming to light. And I have an affinity for that. I've always had it. And when I began to see it in my chart, I was like, okay, like something in me took a sigh, took just relax. Like, I really do need to honor that knowing in me that needs to retreat. I need that time. And so I was able to give it to myself with more consciousness, you know, and like just really, really, really work with it. The other thing as a mom, I think this is important to bring in also, is as I began to understand my daughter's energy, also very Plutonian. And we're, you know, our lineages are, we can see the similarities in our soul family, in our lineage. I come from a very Plutonian lineage. And so, you know, we can only attract ourselves. So we bring in souls who are the same resonance, right? So my daughter is very Plutonian. And one of the things, you know, it's a very Scorpio, it's very intense. So if I knew her lunar language or her energetic nature more as a child, you know, if I knew then what I know now, I would have understood it where she was speaking from, because we speak our chart and we live our chart.
Yes.
And I would have been able to be, you know, I mean, it was intense. You know, she was an intense child, and I would have been able to just drop into a little bit and go, oh, I know what that is.
Yes.
I got it. And even supported her a little bit differently, even though I was a very conscious mom. I could have just, you know, relaxed more to know that this is who she is. She lives in this state. of transformation.
Yes.
Death and rebirth. This is what Scorpio is, death and rebirth, death and rebirth. It like breathes it, lives it, you know, and I'm like, as a mom, a first time mom going, oh my God, you know. So I would have been able to, so it's very valuable for parents. And I highly recommend moms and dads, parents to really understand their children's nature,
Yeah.
so that they can support them as a being in their soul's evolution, you know. So
I love that. It's like knowing what drives them from the inside. Also,
yes.
I mean, yeah,
Like a mom that has a child that's has a lot of Aries energy.
that's what I was just thinking of, understanding. Both my
Like,
sister and one of my daughters have an Aries moon.
oh,
And once I understood that, which is an energy of a driving force, this like, okay, there's a mountain, we're gonna run up it,
right,
you
right,
know, like
right.
that kind of
Take
energy.
action first, think later.
Right, exactly. That once I understood that, it was like, okay, I could see that, and uh and just kind of work with it, like you said, sink into what's happening, go, okay, I see what's happening here,
Yeah,
understanding it as part of their inner driving force. Even though they might speak something else on the outside, there was this thing on the inside.
yeah. And how important is that in relationships? Do you
Right.
know, if you can really understand your partners, you know, and I go to the moon because the moon is always active in us. I mean, if we do nothing else, for me, this is just my own, if we do nothing else but work our moon, because it is the subconscious, our defense mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
we can shift our position from the defense mechanism of the moon
Mm-hmm.
and allow the energies of our sun and our Venus and our Mars to come online.
Mm-hmm.
Because the moon, the subconscious, is always keeping us in that place of comfort and security and safety, and you know, what feels like home, even if it's a distortion, even if it's not so good for us. So when we really understand our lunar nature and how important is that in a relationship, which is Venus, you know, to know what, you know, when we talk about the love languages, this is just kind of coming in right now.
Sure.
You know, yes, there's the 5 love languages, but the real love language is our first love, the moon,
Mm.
because that's our subconscious language. And we're always speaking that until we become aware and we start listening to ourselves and going, oh, what am I saying? And why did I say that? And where did that come from?
Yeah.
You know, and that affects how we relate, right? Which is Venus. So Venus is overshadowed by the moon and we bury her. You know, the moon overshadows her, and we, to bring her online, we've got to really, really begin to shift up our lunar position, our subconscious, so she can come online. And there's 2 different energies.
Mm-hmm.
The moon's function and Venus's function are 2 different energies.
Well, I want to just say something for the listeners, that to me, one of the greatest things about astrology is developing this. It's not that you have an astrology reading and then all of a sudden you try to be that thing that they're telling you in your astrology. It's
Mm,
a way of actually understanding something
yeah,
about yourself that you've already known, but it may have been disjointed pieces. So to
yeah.
me, it was this understanding, oh, this is what I ask for. This is
Mm,
what I need. This is
mm,
what supports me. And
yeah.
having some other words for it is what it really brought forth for me. Now, I know today, and I want to just shift gears here, we're going to talk about retrogrades. So,
Mm-hmm.
specifically Venus retrograde, but why don't you start us off with a little bit about how, 2020, I mean, the remainder of 2020, I think
Whew.
you had said to me earlier today, is a retrograde cycle, the rest of the remainder of 2020. So could you speak to that a little bit, and then we'll go into Venus retrograde?
Yeah. So again, going back to astrology being the cosmic clock,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the cosmic clock right now, the astrological cosmic clock, has its finger on the pause button.
Yes.
So we might want to start reopening, and we might want to start like getting back into life because we're getting antsy, because it's beautiful outside, and we've had enough of being told what we can do and what we can't do, right? We'll be talking about that. We'll talk more about that, like the paradigms that we create from.
Yes.
And that is very valid for sure, because we are all being called up to reclaim our sovereignty. And that's one of the themes of this retrograde, this Venus retrograde, is reclaiming the sovereignty of our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll share more about why that is. But the cosmic clock has its finger on the pause button, because from now until the end of the year, we will have 8 planets in retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
8 planets. And so what is a retrograde?
Right.
A retrograde is when it appears from Earth that a planet is moving backwards. But that's an optical illusion.
Mm-hmm.
What it means is that the planet is slowing down its orbital axis. And for us, we feel that drag, that electromagnetic drag. I mean, it's very powerful, especially with the inner planets.
Mm-hmm.
We feel them much more quickly, but the outer planets like Pluto and Uranus and Neptune and Jupiter, it's a much deeper inside pull because they're far away. But we feel like Mercury moves around, you know, the sun fast. So it's like, oh, Mercury's in retrograde again. Oh, yeah, Mercury's in retrograde.
Right. I've heard people say, oh, my phone broke, or my computer is, what is Mercury retrograde? Since
Right.
Mercury is the planet of communication.
Yeah. And Mercury is also the ruler of Gemini, where this Venus retrograde, where Venus is retrograding in the sign of Gemini, in the energy of Gemini. So there's a lot that has to do with technology, our relationship to technology. Mercury is mercantile, so it's business, right? And so with all of these 8 planets in retrograde, it gives us an opportunity. A retrograde is a gift of time. All the transits are gifts of time, so that we can actually go, oh, what is my soul doing with me? Like, what does my life want from me? Right? Like, what is the universe asking of us as a planet? And so when we look at the qualities of all of the energies of each planet, we can see maybe where in our own life those energies are working through us. So speaking of Venus, Venus is the quality. Now, she's just energy. Venus, the planet Venus is energy. It's a vibration, right? And so we interpret that vibration through all of these different archetypes, right? So the goddess of love, you know, the goddess of beauty, the goddess of money and abundance. She's the goddess of value. She rules our values because she rules our heart. You know, she rules how we relate to each other, to the other. She rules the sign of Taurus, which is the earth. So she is the ruler of the earth. She brings our relationship to the elements into form. You know, she is that conduit of how we relate to the elements of life. She rules Libra, and Libra is the artist, the heartist, you know, and the high heart artist of the art of life, because life is really our canvas, and we're artists. We're all artists in how we create. Are we creating our life from our heart, from our desire, you know, our pure desire, or are we creating from the subconscious defense mechanisms, distortions, right? So we can really tune in to these energies. Am I creating from love? Let's just, you know, am I creating from beauty, or am I creating from fear? Am I creating from the 4 paradigms, you know, that we create from? And we can discern what they are. We can really feel into them and get intimate with ourselves. Venus in Libra, she wants us to see ourselves in the other. Right? Venus in Taurus is our relationship to the earth. So it's like when we begin to listen to ourselves and hear what we're saying, what's the hidden agenda of whatever it is we're doing, we become more intimate with ourselves. And truly, I feel that this is an opportunity for us in this Venus Gemini retrograde to really come into a more sacred union with our own sovereignty, with the power of love within us, and the goddess, the feminine energy within us.
So let's just circle back for a minute to just shine a light on a few of the things that you said. And then I'd love to have you talk about the 4 paradigms. But, for the listener to understand how many times she said values. So it's like, what is it that you value? What is really important to you? And then you could say that, well, my health is really important to me. I really value my health. And then you look at the choices that you're making and you realize, oh, I've had no exercise. I'm eating food that doesn't feel good for me. I'm not getting enough sleep. It's that, where are you out of sync with what you're saying that you value or what's important to you? And then what are the choices that you're making? So I know those were some of the things that you talked about, and I just wanted to circle back and shine a light on those as we're going more into this, to recognize, someone might say, where am I creating from? What does that? No, life is just happening to me. Actually, you are a powerful creator and manifester, and it's based on your values and the choices that you're making.
Yeah. And the choices we make come from our value system.
Yes.
So if we take that even a step further, like, okay, so I'm recognizing that I really value my health, and I can relate to that totally, at a different stage of my life. And it's like, oh, I would take care of myself a little bit differently. Oh, well, I may not be retreating enough and getting the time that I need, the downtime that I need. I'm going. That was a aha moment for me. Like, oh, well, I really need this. This is my nature.
Yes.
And so then the question below the question is not from a place of judgment, but curiosity, which is very Gemini. What is it in me that keeps me going? Why? What's that driving force that keeps me going, that I'm not taking the time that I need, or I'm not eating the foods that I know I want to eat? And that's the moon. The moon, when we do things that we know we want to do something different, but here we are, oops, I did it again. That's when we know the moon is up. Like, and what is the moon doing? What is the undercurrent impetus, motivator that keeps us in repeating those patterns? Those are the questions below the questions that we can ask as we start, reflecting on the choices we're making, and are they serving us? Because Venus is all about serving herself.
Yes.
She is. Venus shares from her pleasure. She does because it brings her pleasure. The moon does to bring comfort and security. But Venus does because it brings me pleasure. And it can be almost like a little callous, in a sense of, it really doesn't matter what your experience is. I'm doing this because I feel really good about it. And I hope you're enjoying the ride.
Oh my God. I love that. I have this new thing now when I go grocery shopping every 2 weeks to Trader Joe's, where I've been getting a snack for a friend of mine who was doing some yard work here. And so, but I recognized the other day that when I said, hey, have you ever had this? And he's like, no. And I said, well, it's in your car now, enjoy it. And I thought, I did that because it gave me such pleasure to do it.
Exactly.
Like to think of this friend when I was in the grocery store and then to give that gift. It was totally
I love it.
like it
That's
was,
so Venus.
and I
That
hope
is,
he enjoys it. And if not,
yeah.
pass it on, like,
Yeah, what a beautiful Venus moment, and if we can all begin to share from that place out
yes,
pleasure,
yes.
we can begin to see where we're not
Mhm.
creating, because that's a creation. Like you created this harmonic between you and the other.
Yes, yes. Oh, and
I
he got
just
a
got
big
chills on
smile
that.
on his face. I mean, it was definitely like there was just love and joy and everything else, but it came out of my well of love, loving, creativity, beauty,
Yep,
desire, all of
yep.
that. It came out of
No
that place.
hidden agenda
No
of
hidden.
I even need
Right.
you to say thank you.
Right, right. No, it's in the car. I threw it in
Exactly.
through your window. It's on the passenger seat.
Yeah, yeah. That's like giving and receiving and all love,
Yes, yes.
right? Because if we're giving from any of these four paradigms that we're going to talk about, if we're creating from these four paradigms, or we're receiving from the four paradigms,
Mhm,
that creates dissonance.
mhm. Yes,
It
yes.
creates
Or
dissonance.
me
It
saying,
creates,
"Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did I do it right? Did I?" There's that other like,
that's the moon. That's the
yeah,
voice of the moon. The moon
right.
will do
Whereas
something,
Venus was just total love. There it
right?
is.
Just
Move on to the next
overflow,
thing. But
overflow.
when you just shared that, I thought, oh yeah, I had that moment this week.
Absolutely. And it's sweet. And I can feel your enthusiasm, right?
Yes,
Which is
yes,
entheos,
yes,
God, goddess, and you expressing. I
absolutely.
love it. I love that. Oh, I just got, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. 'Cause
All right, so let's move to the four paradigms.
yeah,
And,
the four
and
paradigms.
to give that, this is such a gift that you're going to share this
This is
stuff.
really, it's a gift, for me to have received through my training and studying of psychoanalytical astrology. And that's the lens that I share from. There's many, many different, you know, um, lenses that we can look at astrology: evolutionary astrology, ancient astrology, esoteric astrology, right? And it's all
Mhm.
fascinating for me.
Yeah.
For
Mhm.
me, I really like to bring spiritual laws down to earth.
Mhm.
I'm Virgo, I'm practical. How does this work? And then how can I use it for the system to work more efficiently? That's
Mhm.
Virgo. So it's like, how can I use it? So when I learn these and many other of these different types of how the psyche functions,
Mhm.
we can really understand, like, oh, where am I creating that from? And, how did I get into that relationship? Oh, yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Learn a little bit more about myself.
Uh-huh.
So these four paradigms. So the question that I'd like to just present is, where are we creating from? And again, creating isn't just this doingness like you opened up the show with. It's
Mhm.
not this doingness from outside. It's, where am I creating my life from?
Mhm.
The juiciness of my own life, the beauty of my own life, the abundance and love of my own. Where am I creating that from? So there's four paradigms that we create from: politics, religion, science, and economics. And here's what they sound like in life. Politics sounds like what we can and cannot do. And we're all experiencing that now, right? What we can and cannot do. Religion is what I should or shouldn't do.
Mhm.
And, I got kicked out of the club that I was born into because I wouldn't do a lot of what I should have supposed to be doing, right? Um, Science is, I need to know, I need to be an expert before I can act.
Mhm.
And that ran my life for a long time. Like, I need to be the expert. I need to have that PhD. I need to have that outward credibility, you know. And as I was sharing with you when we were chatting, that what really liberated me from that, or was a key to open the door of me stepping into more freedom to express who I am in the jewels of my journey, is the quote, God doesn't qualify the called, he calls the qualified. And maybe I got that mixed up, but
God does it. It's a Michael Bernard Beckman
yeah,
quote, and I know you said it the way he said it earlier, but it's God does not call the qualified. God qualifies
the called. Yeah. Yep.
So
And
you don't start a podcast as qualified. You start it because you have a calling to it. And
yes.
over time and over practice, you become qualified for it. But you have to
Yes.
start with something.
And the beauty of that is, again, Venus is when we're called and we're creating something as a gift from our pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gift for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, this brings something else that's coming in right now that I'm just going to drop in that is huge for us, is when we give a gift, are we receiving the blessing that we're bestowing for ourselves?
Yes.
Oh my God, it's just like, you know, we do, and we create and oh, I'm going to do a podcast because I really, really desire to do it. But then are we actually in the pleasure of the moment?
Yeah.
Are we receiving that blessing? It's so important. So knowing where we're creating from, right? So I'm called, but now, even though I'm called, where am I creating from?
Mm-hmm.
Because once we step onto a journey, you know, then we begin to really have the experience of what the calling is.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is not always what you thought it was going to be.
It's like,
oh, I didn't know that there were going to be rapids around this bend of the road, or
yeah.
I didn't know it was going to be still here and I want to get going, you know. So
ultimately, isn't that what we're being called to?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That's exactly the experience where our soul is calling us to experience, bring our destiny to us so that our chart can start working, our soul can work through us, you know, that moon can start showing us where we're in our defense mechanisms, you know, and then Venus is trying to come online and going, you know, share from your pleasure, and then Mars is going, act now.
Right.
And Mercury's going, make sure you communicate it in the way that, you know.
Hey, Liz, you didn't tell us the economics, or did I miss it?
Isn't that interesting? Okay, so science is I need to know, and then economics is not enough.
Okay.
There's not enough support, not enough resources, not enough love. I'm not enough. You know, there's not enough for me in a relationship. I mean, this is one of the, you know, huge, when I speak with men and women, and men that are listening, I think you can relate to this with in relationships, in any relationships. It's like, I can't do enough. I can't do enough because it's never enough. Yeah. And women, you know, and there's a reason for this that we can have another conversation on about the structure of the psyche. Sure. And literally the masculine and feminine energies within us, why that is. And it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. Like that women really intrinsically don't have the definition that the masculine energy does, because we are the feminine, masculine and feminine energies. The feminine is the whole.
Yes.
There's no definition. It's the cosmic womb. And so as souls incarnate as a woman, we have this energy of, who am I? Because we are the whole. And so we look to the other for definition, and we'll never find it there, right? We'll never find it. So we'll never be enough. Yeah. This is when we can pull in and ask, where am I creating this experience from, even the experience. Where are we creating this experience from? Like, we are literally just having fun right now,
Mhm.
playing, right? I mean, we're just playing. And if it's just for you and I, it's just for you and I.
Exactly.
And that's a beautiful intercourse
Mhm.
of energies, and that's Venus.
I love that.
And so in Gemini, as
Mhm.
she retrogrades, she's now in her what's called stationing station. She's stationing, which means she's slowing down, preparing to go retrograde into the underworld May 13th, May 12th or 13th, depending on where you are. And so she will be in retrograde until June 25th,
Mhm.
which means she's taking us on this journey of retracing a path. A retrograde is a gift where we can retrace a path that we've walked before in life and receive more jewels of our journey.
Mm.
Like jewels that we weren't able to see before because we weren't ready. Well, now we're a different person. So we can retrace that and reflect and retrace and maybe reclaim pieces of ourselves
Mhm.
that we left along the way. This is what a retrograde is for. In Venus and Gemini, I feel what she's asking us to do is reclaim the sovereignty of our mind. Because Gemini rules the mind, Mercury rules the mind. And we are really being called up as sovereign beings now to reclaim the power of our mind because there's so much mind control going on, especially with technology.
Mhm.
Like these images and symbols that flash, on the screen of our mind are imprinting suggestive, subliminal messages.
Mhm.
We've got to be very careful, not from a place of fear, but from a place of power,
Mhm.
of reclaiming our power as a sovereign being to know what our thoughts are doing with us
Mhm.
and where are we creating from. And so this is a time to retreat. It's a time to, really give ourselves time to unplug even
Mhm.
from technology and see also, here's another piece of it that brings it in, because Venus rules the elements and the earth, we are literally reprogramming the elements with our mind.
Mhm.
So as we, like, AI, right? I mean, we can see it happening. And so our relationship to technology is rippling out to reprogram the elements of the earth.
Mhm.
And so, Mama Earth said, I'm going to put the pause button. I'm going to put my finger on the pause button for a while so I can do what I need to do to recalibrate, right? So you guys need to be quiet for a little bit.
Yeah.
So just like a mama would do, right? We were scruffed. and so if we can drop into that this summer and really begin to see what is our relationship, Venus, relationship to technology. What is our relationship to thoughts, to our mind? What is our relationship to our business? And bring more beauty, more awareness, more consciousness to where we're creating from. Then I believe that we can emerge from this retrograde summer, literally new beings,
Mhm.
like not remade, no, like a new being, sovereign being, hopefully more connected to the organic essence of us, right? With a more balanced relationship to technology and power.
So I know that we're going to wrap up the show soon, and I'm just in circling back around this. So I'm pausing here because I could feel myself going in two different directions. I mean, one of the things that I know about Venus I'll just share this first, is that for 9 months, Venus is an evening star.
Mm.
And then during the retrograde, disappears from
Mm-hmm.
view, that we can't see Venus in the skies.
Mm-hmm.
And then it reemerges as a morning star
Yeah.
for 9 months. And so if you think about that in terms of Venus being at these different places where we're viewing her, that it is that the retrograde, in a sense, to me, feels like a reset of perspective around beauty. So I want to put that into this field. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is, if there's anything with the 4 paradigms that you'd like to leave our listeners with in terms of working with where we're creating from. Yeah, so those are the 2 different directions, which could probably be
Got
another
it.
hour show. Easy.
Right. Yeah. No, I got it.
Try to circle it in for people and
Yeah, totally. So every planet has those 3 different experiences. All planets can, and it's when Venus goes below the equator is when we don't see her. So the moon does that. The moon has the moon rise, depending on where it is, what phase it's in.
Sure.
Determines where it is in the sky. So all of the planets have that. So she will be below the equator during the retrograde, right? It's the underworld.
Yeah.
So we have this opportunity to go into the depths of self and then emerge as this rising star, and so, and I could get into the whole Venus cycle of the pentagram and all of that. She's at her last Stargate with Gemini of an 8-year cycle. So this is a real completion. And we were talking about this earlier, that the nodes of the moon are shifting now from Capricorn, Cancer, where we've been for the past 18 months, year and a half, into Gemini. And my mind just went. And I'm Gemini rising, so the axis of Gemini. Oh my goodness. So wow, the veil just came down. Like, that is so amazing.
Well, I guess that was it for that topic.
Yeah.
It was like the curtain was dropped.
Yeah, we're coming into this place of, like, just stay there, Liz. Just be right there. Like, don't go any further with Gemini. And it's Gemini. So we're rising from that new place. And that will happen by the beginning of August. She'll be complete, because after she is in her retrograde cycle, then she stations direct, which she slows down, and then she starts moving direct, and it takes a little bit of time for a planet to get its full momentum. So we will start feeling her shift. Things will start moving forward for Venus the beginning of August, and then by the middle of August we'll really feel her move forward. Right.
So like retrograde is the going within. So whenever planets are retrograde, it turns the focus within.
Yeah.
And so when Venus gets going again and we feel the energy in the mid-August, then there's this feeling of coming out and bringing it out and bringing that beauty out. So turning the in, and where are we creating from, and then turning her outward.
Yes, and that's why retrogrades are a gift of time, because we can really do beautiful work within. And so when that planet goes direct, we're ready to move forward. And it's organic and it's easy, because we've already done the work, and there's nothing to do other than just step into a new experience. And it happens without us even thinking about it, because when we do that subconscious work, which is the underworld, and we rewrite those scripts, we recode those matrices, we show up doing things that we've been trying to do for years, and we go, oh my God, like, how did I get here? I've been trying to do this forever, and I'm just doing it now.
Mhm.
because we've recoded the matrix. We've rewritten the script in the subconscious. And that's where the work really is.
Yeah.
It's not out here. It really isn't. It's in here. And that, that's like we read these memes and quotes from Rumi, and when we embody them, we become them.
Yes. And going within is how you begin to embody it. It's not
Yes.
by the reading it out there. It's actually about pulling it in. That's where the embodiment happens.
Yes. And so, for instance, when we have a reading, let's say, it's not about just receiving the information or any class. That's Gemini, information, information, information. It's,
Mhm.
is that information changing us? Are we having an experience with it where it's, changing our inner formation?
Yeah.
That's when it becomes wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And then we embody it, we integrate it, we embody it, and we rise up to a new expression of our solar, sun power, our solar essence. And it's really a beautiful dance if we're willing to do that. And so I would say, in these four paradigms that if, begin to just recognize, the self, observe the self. It's like one of the foundational principles of living in love is like becoming a non-judgmental observer of self. What am I saying? What am I doing? How am I moving through the world? Where am I creating this from? I ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
Because the question compels the answer. This is how we get to know who we are. And so I'm going to be taking women in my group on a journey through Venus retrograde. I have a free offering every Thursday. Right now, it's Calling the Circle, which is a global gathering of women making sacred stories of life events. And I was called to start it the beginning of February, so before all of this really hit. And it was like, oh, okay, got it. And so we've been gathering every Thursday, 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern time. And so if anyone is interested in listening, you can join us tonight if you catch this today. But every Thursday I do something, a free offering, and I'm going to be taking the women in the group through a Venus retrograde journey. Every Thursday night I'll be doing some kind of training. So if you're listening and anything that we've shared feels like it resonates, come on in and join us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great group of women, really beautiful sacred space, and I'm honored to be the space holder for women living in love. And I think this is such a potent time for us, for our planet. We are the gatekeepers, and there are other gatekeepers, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can rise up to a more sovereign place within with our own voice, I feel the feminine voice. Interesting. My voice just wobbled. The feminine voice is calling. And I don't mean that from a gender standpoint. I mean that from the energy of the feminine.
Absolutely.
To bring balance. And that's what we're here for. We're here to be the balance, of the scales. This is what Venus is calling us up to. So,
well, I want to thank you for being here. And I know we've come to the end of the show. And I want to just say to the listeners that check out the links in the comments section. And actually, I'll be there Thursday tonight.
awesome.
Yeah, I
Beautiful.
was able to move a few things around with my schedule. So I was like, I'm
Yay!
gonna come and be in your wonderful energy.
Thank you.
And just for the listeners to know, it happens every Thursday night. There's an offering in the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if
Anything-
anyone is interested in inquiring about readings and private mentorship,
Mhm.
I work with courageous women
Yes.
and big-hearted men as well.
Mhm.
um,
And I'll make sure that there's a link there also to reach out
yeah,
to you and connect with you with that.
yeah.
So
It's an
thank
honor to
you.
serve. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so much.
Andrea. I love
Been,
anytime we connect and create together.
and I do too. Mwah, much love.
Mwah. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye now.